I was a senior partner at IBM. The whole service line across Europe was around $1 billion revenue. Now, when I went to the Silicon Valley and became the chief operating officer of Headspin, eventually made an exit. Right now, I'm freelancing, so I've been building a multi-agent platform. AI is now as important as water or electricity. I don't want to use the word fear factor, but you have it at the back of the mind that you have the power, but then with power comes responsibility. I don't think that the human judgment will go away. You'll still need that.
And I disagree with that. I think that AI makes better decisions.
Visa has come up with an AI agent which can automatically do your shopping.
Traditional businesses, I don't see how they catch up.
It's like basically having information on steroids for you.
AI beats all grandmasters. Its ability to execute decisions is ahead of human.
You can run agents to look at ChatGPT, to look at Grok, to look at Plot, to look at DeepSeek, compare and contrast the results from different LLMs. I mean, look at the amount of power you're able to now get.
How does it sit with you?
That's a soul-searching question, yeah?
This is Gaurav Mathur. He is a technology evangelist. He started his career in the Big Four, where he moved from accounting into technology, only to join IBM as a services partner. He moved from there into smaller organizations, SaaS to AI, and most recently, Agentic AI. He has seen the generational leaps of technology firsthand. Most recently, he's been really focused on supporting VCs and private equity funds where to invest in this world of AI. We got the opportunity to sit down and unpack where AI is at today, the impact it's going to have, how big a generational leap it will have over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. But more importantly, the constraining factors, whether it's energy, data centers, and how governments need to invest to get ahead of the curve for the generational leaps of technology that we're witnessing today. Gaurav, nice to meet you.
Nice
we
to meet you,
barely
Ezra.
know each other via a few WhatsApps.
Yeah.
It's good.
A weekend WhatsApp, right?
Yes.
That's why you should always check your phone on the weekends.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and look, we're on a relentless journey at the moment, and so it was nice to be introduced to you, and just great to connect. You're obviously in this AI world, and it's great for us to get. We're obviously on the AI journey. You've got a tremendous amount of experience. I was actually checking out your LinkedIn profile, and it went a whole kind of phase further than I realized. So
Right.
you started in the Big Four.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
On the technology side.
So no, I qualified as an accountant with Pricewaterhouse.
Okay.
And then I went over to Accenture, and that's when Accenture taught me technology.
Yes.
And the reason I went into technology because I thought that is going to make the biggest difference. This is, mind you, this is back in 1997.
Right.
But I could see that technology is something which will make a difference.
Yeah.
And second, it will give me a chance to travel the world.
Yes.
And that's how I went into technology.
Amazing. Yeah. And so then, is that when you then enter the ERP world?
Yes. Yeah. So a large initial part of my career with Accenture was around helping large customers implement global ERP systems. A lot of it was around rationalizing data, systems, bringing efficiencies, process efficiencies.
So you went on that journey right the way through until you hit IBM in, was that 07 or 08?
Around 2009, yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
Good. And so was a lot of what you done in the SAP world?
I did SAP, yeah, the first, I think till around 2015, I did a lot of SAP work. And then IBM asked me to spell CLOUD, cloud. And so I thought, all right, well, let's try and run that business for IBM in Europe. So I was leading the cloud services business in Europe.
Right.
Not to say that I've been away from SAP, but I was like doing a wider portfolio looking at migrating a lot of our customers' applications, SAP or non-SAP, onto cloud. But my bedrock for everything was, how can I sort of help customers drive cost efficiencies and become more agile, modernize their applications through cloud.
But did you come across Red Commerce and Red Global then, as an SAP player?
So I knew of the existence, but unfortunately I didn't have a chance to do any transaction with them. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were aware of them because so Red, I think we became the number one kind of recruitment brand in the SAP sector.
Yeah.
Globally, those guys, us and K2, I think were probably the largest, but K2 become more of a broader digital player, and we were a thoroughbred, I think, pure play SAP, and probably until about 2000 and I guess maybe 2015 or something like that. So first 15 years of its journey was purely SAP.
Yeah, but SAP itself has evolved. Right? SAP became more digital, SAP cloud. So there's so many different ways. It's the largest European company, right?
It's incredible, yeah. And what's remarkable about those guys is that they are never first to market on anything, but they always kind of succeed over a long period of time. What do you put that down to? Do you have a view on that?
Well, I think first of all, they come from a very strong incumbency position.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, their installed base is so huge. They've got strong relationships. I think their execution arm is also very strong. So fine, they may not be the first to say come up with an agentic AI solution, but then they'll come out with a jewel and then they'll roll it out and offer some great deals to their customers and they can sort of scale very quickly. If you look at their last results, I think the reason why they have done so well, I think in the last couple of quarters, is because they are showing great execution rigor, both in terms of growing the top line, but also their margins, and at the same time convincing the market that they have different integration or agentic AI integration solutions, and then they form partnerships very well, be it like with Databricks to form SAP Data Cloud, or be it with an implementation partner. So I think they're a very well run execution arm.
Yeah, you are right, and it's so deeply rooted, isn't it, into its customer base.
Yeah,
they've always been able to kind of become second. It might be second to market, but they come up with a way of building on that customer base really, really well.
Yeah,
it's an amazing industry to have started as a recruitment company.
Yeah.
Just to the scale and depth of that kind of ecosystem. And I think our success actually as a business came from, I always say the same thing, which is one of its key things was realizing that the SAP market is bigger than all of our competitors thought it was.
Right.
We just realized there was more opportunity in it and we didn't need to leave that ecosystem to grow. Right. Whereas other people, I think, maybe hit some ceilings and then the grass was slightly greener to go into adjacent technologies. And it never fell foul of that, I think, because we always realised just the sheer scale of the industry. Yeah, cool. And then that's when it looks like in IBM, you mentioned the cloud piece. You were kind of pivotal and fundamental part of your career was in a huge acceleration of that business for IBM.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, super interesting.
Yeah.
How did all that come about? So what was the agenda there?
The agenda there was that a lot of customers were sort of looking for the next wave of, how they could drive more operating efficiencies within their IT landscape and how they could modernize their applications. Yeah. A lot of time, clients have a need to do various things on a digital front, but their legacy infrastructure, because it's not modernized, i.e. it's sitting on, very antiquated code or very antiquated systems, it doesn't allow you to do all the agile things you need to do. Like if you're having a web front end or a mobile front end, you need to be very agile to respond to changing customer needs. Yeah. So that was the requirements from the customer saying, look, hey, we need to modernize our stack and be more agile to serve our end customers better. And secondly, yes, fine, we put stuff into data centers, we did shared services, outsourcing. How are we going to get the next wave of savings? Yeah. And that's where cloud came in because, it allowed customers an opportunity to further optimize their infrastructure and modernize it. Now, it was also a means to an end because just because you have put, say, 20, 50 or 100 applications onto cloud doesn't mean that suddenly you can start giving the best quality experience to the customers. Yeah. But you have a agile platform, a modernized platform. You still have to then build applications on top of it. Yeah. But you're standing on a much more robust foundation, a more flexible, a more secure foundation on which you can then build applications on to meet customer needs.
It sounds crazy talking now about what is the absolute norm but was actually revolutionary back in 2008-9, 10 as everything started to kind of transition to cloud.
Absolutely. In fact, I wish I had met you like 10 years ago, because the point you were making earlier that SAP market was big and you bet on SAP rather than others. I'm not saying I did not bet on SAP. I probably just, chose different technology because I like variety in life and trying to sort of see that. I could have probably stayed in SAP, and I know a lot of my colleagues who were still SAP professionals are doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I probably like the idea of, going from SAP to cloud, then to AI, and then to Gen AI.
Yes.
Could be the next, the next wave of AI which comes through. I like dabbling with new forms of technologies and still, bringing it back to the fundamentals, which is my core finance and accounting background, that any technology, you got to assess the impact on three things: revenue, margins, and return on capital.
Yeah.
If you can't quantify that, then there's something missing in the technology puzzle that you need to solve.
That's how you look. That's the lens that you look at all technology via.
Yeah. And at times it becomes very difficult because it's finger in the air for revenue, it's finger in the air for margins. But you got to start looking at it from that lens, because end of the day, you're deploying someone's money, whether it's your money or an investor's money, and you got to return that money at some stage, or you got to generate a return. Otherwise, you might as well put in the bank account and earn 3% interest.
Yes.
Right. So you got to see, okay, whatever you're doing, whether you're running a recruitment business or an ice cream shop or an AI technology firm, you got to look at it from a point of view of what's the potential, what return can you generate.
Some return on that effort, whether it's human capital or cash or whatever it is. You're looking for the ultimate return.
Yeah, you need to understand the North Star. Now, to get to the North Star may be challenging, and you may have peaks and troughs and go the wrong way, etc. But at least you know what's the North Star you're aiming for. Then you can move and gravitate your business towards it.
When I looked at you on LinkedIn, though, it felt like you've left the CFO aspect slightly, or not left it, but it feels like you've moved into more of a commercial role. Was it a financially focused role in IBM?
No, so IBM was largely, business development, growth, and practice leadership.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, the financials were keen because you're kind of responsible for reporting to the head of IBM Consulting and the leadership. What's the revenue you're earning, what the costs you're doing.
Yeah.
But was I preparing the financial statements? No, I wasn't preparing the financials. I was running a business, and yes, I had a CFO who was aligned to my line of business. Now, when I went to the Silicon Valley in 2020 and became the chief operating officer of Headspin, I was also this, I would probably, I could even call my title as COFO, Chief Operating and Finance Officer, because I was the CFO as well.
Yeah.
There, I sort of, apart from growing the business of Headspin in the European region, I was also the executive responsible for finance, everything to do with finance, whether it's core accounting, fundraising. We eventually made an exit, so the exit of the company, etc.
I can't quite grasp the number of achievements you've got, really, because you've been partner at multiple big four firms, I believe.
I was a senior partner at IBM.
Yeah. Okay. IBM.
Yeah.
There, how big was that actual project that you were kind of leading in that area? Was it you're part of the leadership team which was driving? Was it a $1 billion? Yeah,
roughly a $1 billion. The whole service line across Europe was around $1 billion revenue.
Yeah, and was when you joined, was that almost at the very start of that process?
Yeah, because in 2015, when I took over the cloud leadership, it was, we were still trying to figure out what cloud was, trying to spell cloud.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Incredible. Were you part of that team? Were you leading that team?
I was running the service line. Now, I also had direct responsibility for some clients. So I was a client account partner for an energy client. I was a client account partner for a consumer product client, where I was responsible for embedding, not just selling. I mean, I've always believed in my career to not just sell and run away. I mean, some people like to do that, but I like to sell and deliver with clients, because for me, the greatest satisfaction is seeing the adoption of whatever I've sold.
Yeah.
And seeing the clients realize the value from it.
Yeah, amazing. Just help me understand that a little bit more detail. So you were the client services director of the cloud leadership team. Is that right?
I was running the service line
Yep.
for cloud. So it was a business which was part of IBM. It was what used to be called Global Business Service. It was one of their service lines.
Yes.
So that I scaled up to $1 billion revenue.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And how many people are working in that business whilst you're doing that under that kind of branch?
I think across Europe there were close to 2,000 people, and if you consider the resources across the globe, like India, etc., you had around somewhere between 18 to 20,000 people.
Incredible.
Yeah, but then IBM is a matrix organization. You have people in different countries,
Yes.
in different industry groups. As a service line leader, you're like an evangelist who's running a shadow P&L to make sure that you are helping the different country P&Ls achieve their objectives.
With you. So it's really kind of commercial and strategic in that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's fascinating about the conversation, and I know we've completely sprung, this was completely unplanned, so it's amazing, and I didn't really expect it, but it's a great platform actually to really understand your journey. And what I've realized just talking to you is just how you have got incredible, I guess, visibility of that technological journey or tech journey right the way through those different generations, foundational changes in tech. So from your traditional ERPs into cloud, into SaaS, and then more recently into AI.
Yeah.
So you really have had a front seat on that journey.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like to sort of, put my neck on the line and get in the trenches and, to a certain extent, get yourself out of the comfort zone.
Yes.
Learn something new, and then see how you can sort of, co-author the chapters of a new technology along with your customers. That is fun for me. Yeah. I mean, you can have two playbooks in your career. You can take a well-written book and implement it or read to people hundreds of times and still make a lot of money. I like the latter, where, get to learn a technology, maybe write the script on how the technology is going to be adopted with customers, with your colleagues, with your partners, and see the impact of that. The SaaS is the fundamental, is the business model, because the software was sold as a service, right? Yes. Yeah, subscription based revenue. The AI was that the solution was an AI software testing platform that provided data science and insights into the quality of user experience on different digital channels. Now, maybe there's a few jargony words in that statement, but let me explain in simple terms. If you are a bank and you have an online banking app, right? You are concerned about the quality of experience you are providing to a customer who's coming in, logging in, checking the account balance, making a transfer, etc. How do you test that? That's the software platform that Headspin used to provide, or still provides that. It's still a going concern. So the AI was the technology which we had developed to effectively find a needle in a haystack. Because if you're trying to, say, access a banking application, and if it's taking, say, 30 seconds to even open the application, or if you're trying to then make a transaction and you suddenly get blank screen, there's a problem, but you don't know necessarily where's the problem, what's causing it. Now, our machine learning algorithms and AI technology used to run in the background and produce like the or help customers find the needle in the haystack. So if you are having, say, a 30-second latency when you're trying to log on to a banking application, what is causing the degradation? Is it something at the application layer, or the core layer, or the network layer, or a combination of that? And hence, a number of high-tech companies, customers like Microsoft, customers like Meta, banks like Lloyds Bank, etc., Visa, telcos like British Telecom, Virgin Media, Virgin Mobile, who are critically dependent on their B2C channel working correctly, or like the media company Walt Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery. They are, they bought our technology because they saw the value in perfecting the end user experience. Originally, it was the QA and testing people who were our ICP. But as we started looking across the system development lifecycle, yes, we went right to the SRE folks who were involved in the monitoring the post-production environment. So yes, stuff is live. Is it still working well? If there are problems, what's causing the problem? But we also shifted left to the designers because they started getting interested in, okay, I'm designing this new application, right? What are the best practices you've seen? What are the benchmarks? I may say put something on smart TV and feel that quality of experience is nice, but actually, no, if I look at my competitor, they are offering a product which is much more superior to us. So as we evolved as a company over the last 4 years, we started also having our ICP who were right up on the left in terms of the people who were designing, the product managers, right? So we sort of, that's why we grew our TAM. And that was the reason why we were able to grow from close to around $7 million to over $20 million over 4 years, because we saw different use cases on how we can bring the benefit of our technology to ICP across the SDLC. Still, though 60% was mainly still in QA and testing, but we did have use cases where we were helping others. I left Headspin because we sold the company and made an exit. See, here's the difference between running a big or being part of a big mothership where you could become a cog in the wheel to actually running your own business, whatever the size it was, because you kind of exactly knew what lever to pull to create value. Every time you made a sale, you knew what impact is happening. Every time you saved any cost, and I sort of, optimized a cost space because the company was sort of, like minus 160% EBITDA, burning $20 million a year. I changed the profile in 4 years to make it positive EBITDA, make it positive cash flow. So yes, I could have been in the morning speaking to a customer about, say, a new deal or expanding the existing deal. But in the afternoon, I could be calling up AWS and saying, can you sort of optimize your cloud costs? Or I could be, in the evening then talking to my sales and marketing team to say, actually, I'm not getting the return on investment on how many people you have and, how much business you're getting in compared to how much we're spending on sales and marketing. Or finally, my last call of the day could be to our janitors saying, I don't think we can afford this level of charges you're doing to come and clean our facilities. Because you have control and ownership of the entire balance sheet and P&L.
Would you say that's the first time where you felt like you had that level of ownership and control was significant when you stepped into it and you started operating in that space?
In a huge business, you can influence certain things. Like I could influence the top line and the gross margin.
Yep.
But beyond that, it's all corporate, right? I was told, hey, in your cloud service line, your marketing budget is so-and-so. So you're going to do 4 Gartner presentations, 3 this every year.
Yes.
Out here, I had a zero-based budget, right?
Yeah.
If I wanted to go to Mobile World Congress, I had to make a business decision on how many leads could I generate from being in Barcelona for 3 days. Yeah. How much do I spend? Do I spend 30,000? Do I spend 100,000? Or actually, do I partner with like an Infosys or a VMware, which we did, and we stay on their stalls because they are anyway spending millions. So if we get 5 introductions to 5 customers through them, it would give us better value for money. So nothing is given that you've got a booth out there where you're spending $1 million and people are going to walk in, because you got to hustle and you got to create your own market, right?
And then you've moved into those small businesses. It kind of feels like moving from a game of chess into Call of Duty. You're moving all the big pieces, because you have a different landscape. Do you, if you were to reflect, I can't imagine you've got a career with many regrets in it because of things you've achieved, but would you have gone into small businesses earlier?
Oh, so that's a soul-searching question, yeah? Probably if the right opportunity would have come, yeah. Why not? Yeah. If the right opportunity would have come. Look, I'm not opposed to a big business, but what is important is even in a big business, do you get the autonomy and freedom to incubate and grow a business? I had to some extent in my career, I got the opportunity to do that. But, you still have a safety net. Yes. Whereas when you're a small business, you're living on the edge every day.
And do you feel like did that get more out of you, do you think?
I think, yeah, I think, yeah, because you are motivated. At the same time, there is also something back of your mind that, hey, the decision you take today may, for example, may significantly jeopardize this company's future or the jobs of the people who are working for you, or you could push this into bankruptcy or whatever, you know. So you have I don't want to use the word fear factor, but you have it at the back of the mind that it's like, you know, you have the power, but then with power comes responsibility. So you feel more accountable, you feel more responsible.
The more recent step into the world of agents and
agents,
AI.
and this is fascinating. And I'm learning every day because, you know, right now I'm currently freelancing. So I've been working for a family office, and, you know, the family office has a number of, you know, public investments, but also private investments. And obviously there's a lot of work that goes behind the scene in terms of researching on industries, on sectors, on stocks. A lot of it can be done with agents, which is what I'm kind of, you know, working with the team and building a multi-agent platform to sort of significantly cut down the time it takes to, say, research a stock. Like if you wanted to analyze IT services sector and what are the top 5 companies I should, you know, sort of go long versus going short on, right? I think that time it takes, that the costs it takes to do that analysis today can be significantly cut down, and the quality of what you can produce. So when I go to my principal or the portfolio manager saying, hey, I've, you know, through the help of your analyst and the multi-agent orchestrator that we have developed, we have come up with a recommendation that, you know, you should probably consider allocating X percentage of your portfolio to IT services sector. And then within IT services sector, maybe our bets would be that you sort of, you know, consider these 3 companies, the other 4, maybe you ignore the other 3. You could, if you want to take the risk, go short on them. And that analysis is fascinating. And you have more than one source. Like you can sort of, you know, run these agents to look at, say, ChatGPT, to look at Grok, to look at Claude, to look at DeepSeek, and then sort of, you know, compare and contrast the results from different LLMs. I mean, look at the amount of power you're able to now get, you know, something which takes, you know, a lot of time to do in the past, and you kind of didn't do it because it's so voluminous. Now you can do it very quickly. It's like basically having, you know, information on steroids for you, right? Or if you look at the private sector, if I'm today looking at a company, the traditional way, you look at a data room, you look at the financials, look at potential, etc. I don't think that the human judgment will go away. You'll still need that. But the time it takes me to make an assessment can be significantly cut down if I have an agentic platform, which is sort of, you know, collating all the data and producing some analysis. I think I could have sold my company 6 months earlier if I had those tools.
I disagree with something you said there.
Okay, go for it.
I think what you said then was that you will still need the human to take the kind of decision. I think is what you did use a slightly different word to that, and I disagree with that. I think that the AI makes better decisions. I think that it's the humans have got to provide the intent.
Yeah.
So the intent of the decision, the direction of the decision. Actually, I think it's the decision making which will be replaced. So actually what makes the decision, so you've got to say, for instance, if we took it back to a chess analogy, what's the role in a game of chess? I say it's not to win or to lose.
Mm-hmm.
You need to define how you want AI to win the game of chess.
Mm-hmm.
AI beats all grandmasters. So actually its ability to execute decisions to win is ahead of human.
Yeah.
But the intent of it is the difference.
It's right, but it depends on the use case, right? Like, for example, like Visa has come up with an AI agent which can automatically do your shopping. So if I'm using my Visa every week to buy a basket of groceries from, say, Ocado,
yes,
it's probably, that's fine. It's fine for me to sort of get an agent to do that for me every week. And if I have a need saying, hey, this week replace beef with chicken or whatever, I give those intent and let it do that.
Yes.
So it depends on the use case, right? If I'm, say, a frequent traveler and every year I'm going to New York, I'm happy for the agent to, if it understands my travel patterns, to book the cheapest and the best flights for me.
Yeah.
Right? But if I want to research, say I want to visit a new country, and I've done 83 countries, and I love going to 1 or 2 new countries every year.
Amazing.
Right? I won't let the agent decide where I should go. I can get the agent to tell me, say if I'm looking at Latin America, and I said, look, I haven't done Chile, I haven't done Paraguay, I haven't done, it's not a lot left there, but a few others. And I can say, can you give me some information based on my travel needs and preference on what would you recommend me to do next? Yeah. That is useful information. It will cut down my time.
But your intent, I would suggest would be, I want to explore some countries that I haven't been to in South America.
Yeah.
Now AI will know which you have been, because you'll have a relationship with it. Memory's done. And so then I guess it would be, and I think I'd like it to be a more historical, ancient ruins type of exploratory kind of experience.
Yeah.
So that'd be my intent. And then it would then, I guess, now it's up to you. You're absolutely right. We're humans. So the AI is a tool for us, right? So we can choose to ignore it. I totally understand. I'm not suggesting that it makes all our decisions for us.
Yeah.
But I think it does then, I think we do get to a place where we rely on it, that if it says Uruguay is the #1 place for exploratory, for ancient ruins and whatever, that we're able to rely on it.
You could rely on it, but is that going to be the trip I'm going to make in August? May not be, because I may have different considerations. So one could be my emotional consideration, or what my heart is telling me. I need to go and visit a country in South America, which is good from a historical, cultural perspective. Right? But my head is also telling me, look, I've got 5 countries to visit there. I also want to go in August to the one which gives me the best value for money.
Yes.
So if Uruguay is 3 times more expensive than Chile in August, I might swing to Chile.
Yes.
And I might say, I will probably go to Uruguay in December when I know the prices are going to be cheaper. So then I'm sort of being radical in heart, but also responsible in head. So and AI can help me with that decision.
Yes.
Right? But once I have decided, then, and once I have played around with the AI and worked out an itinerary for 10 days, then I can let it take the admin and say, okay, within these specifications on a type of hotel I want, the trips I want to take, etc., you can do the bookings.
Yes.
Although I personally like doing that so much that I may still end up doing it. But it depends. I mean, it's like for me, travel is a hobby. So I like to sort of take the Lonely Planet and go and do things.
Yes.
The AI can help me plan my trip. But for me, it's like planning. For me, planning the journey is a test, and making the journey is a rest.
Yes. How much of your trips, your travel, is based on your desire to explore, and how much of it is linked to a target of some sort?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, look, I definitely have a desire to explore.
Yeah.
And to learn. So, like I was in Sri Lanka last month. Now, if you just want a beach holiday, you can keep on going to the Caribbean, you can keep on going to Maldives, etc. But every time you go to a new destination, you learn something new: food, people, history, culture, and Sri Lanka is full of that, right? But now that I've come close to 100, and being an avid cricket fan, I want to get to 100 before I die. So I've got 17 more countries to go. So it's both a target and a desire.
Yes.
But you want to have a target for something that you are passionate about. Yeah. I don't want to have a target for something I'm not interested in. Like, I don't have a target for having 10 sports cars because I'm not interested in sports cars.
Well, it won't remain a target if you're not passionate about it, will
exactly.
it? Yeah, it'll dissipate. Yeah. And actually, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? That and I guess that's a really interesting point in itself, which is, if I think about that from an AI perspective, which is that intuitive, emotional connection to the things we want to do is what it won't replace. It's
Yeah.
like, only you will have that intuition
Yeah.
to become emotionally attached to your objectives or goals. So it might suggest 10 goals, but there's only going to be the ones which really resonate with you that you become emotionally attached. So emotional attachment, the more I think about it, emotional attachment will become a lens to really consider and think about through AI. I hadn't distilled it down to that point before, which is really, really interesting how.
I think it could be a combination of emotional but also hard-nosed business objectives. Let's put it in a
Yes.
business context, right? And I have fortunately, unfortunately, seen the good, bad, and ugly of Agentic and Gen AI as well. Where I've seen AI implementations go successful is where clients have a clear mandate. Look, we want to use this Gen AI solution for meeting this business goal.
Right.
And that is critical for us to monetize, to grow our revenue,
Yeah.
maybe cut some costs also in the process. Where I've seen it not go well is where people didn't even have an understanding of why are we buying this solution?
Yeah.
What are we going to do with it? Yeah, you can dabble a bit in it, but dabbling, it also depends, how much money you want to throw at experimentation. And I think, unfortunately, I've also seen customers who have thrown, I think, more than what they should have without having a clear idea of why are you buying this piece of technology or this service. So again, linking back to the outcome of the target, the reason I wanted to sort of bring this in is that, yes, there's an emotional side on, maybe the founder or the CEO having a desire that, hey, I want to take my business from A to B.
Yep.
And then somebody carving for him or her the strategy saying, this is how Gen AI can accelerate to go from A to B, right? But that A to B is also it's not just an emotional desire, but it's also something which is based on some sound business rationale.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you bring AI to support it.
Yeah.
That clicks. Not to say it will always work, because we're all learning and sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes technology doesn't sort of give you all the results, because you got to iterate, you got to do a lot of integration, you got to clean up data. You have to, drive the change as well. It's not just you press a button and suddenly you'll get from A to B. It doesn't happen.
You seem excited about this AI. Yeah, I'll come back to that journey you've been on, which is, you've been through the transitions of technology.
Yeah.
Are you more excited about AI than any of the previous ones? How does it suit? How does it sit with you?
I think a little bit more excited because the power it's able to give to you to make decisions is something, and I think there's an element of instant gratification also. Like with ChatGPT, you get instant gratification.
Yeah.
You try to implement SAP, it's not instant gratification. You try to migrate applications to cloud, it's not instant gratification. But I think the power and the change it can deliver is probably more than what we have seen with all different forms of technologies. Like, even you look at mobile phones or internet and other things, and the impact it can create going forward is huge, both good and bad.
Yes.
So I'm definitely excited about it. And also I see, going back to my finance and accounting background, that's where I see, people will be able to sort of, monetize the value and make some, good returns on an investment. Unfortunately, there will also be a lot of failures. And so I think the key would be how you sort of take a calculated risk to ensure that you invest your time and your money in the right technology, which gives you the best chance. I mean, nothing is, as being an entrepreneur and investor yourself, nothing is guaranteed, but all you can do is to maximize your chances of getting the best outcome.
Yes, it's fascinating. And the more I talk about this at the moment as well, because of the innovation that we've had with our tech stack, which we can talk about later, but it's challenged me to think more about some of the kind of more peripheral thoughts that I've had about enterprise, about technology, about industry, and AI's impact.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a really huge. I think there's two things going on, right? I think that there's going to be a huge amount of competition to traditional businesses via AI native businesses, and that comes from an analogy I was giving. I spoke about this about 12 months ago with someone else, a guy from Toyota, and I was saying that if you take BYD, the Chinese car manufacturer, right, and which is an electric native, technology driven car, and you take European car manufacturers, right?
Yeah.
Every innovation that these guys in BYD have, okay, is built in a technology native environment to them, and they have zero legacy issues that drag on their innovation and in their growth.
Yeah.
You take European car manufacturers, and for every innovation they have, 99% of their focus is on dealing with the consequence of that innovation on their legacy issues.
Yeah.
People, structure, processes, manufacturing, production, existing technology.
Yeah.
And I don't see how they catch up with BYD. I just don't see how they are able to compete. And if I think about that in the AI world, I really wonder what happens with this gap with AI native businesses. And the reason it's really prevalent for me right now is that we have hit this nirvana state. We have a completely AI native tech stack.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is that everything I think about, everything is an innovation that is not compromised by a legacy tech issue. And I just wonder whether that raises two things. First of all, the impact that AI native businesses are going to have on existing. And the second bit is the challenge, which I think we will potentially help organizations with actually, with what we've built, is this transition from, rather than infusing AI into traditional tech stacks. And I think these traditional players, a lot of them, will have to adopt and move to more AI native environments and try and use their capital and inertia to actually launch AI native businesses to compete with their competition. Do you know what I mean? Like trying to infuse that into, these. Is Volkswagen better off scrapping its existing operating system and deploying a new operating system in order to catch up with BYD, rather than infusing technology in traditional processes? Do you know what I mean? Like I think it's, from that perspective, I think it's a really fascinating conundrum that big organizations see today.
No, absolutely. You're totally right. But I think irrespective of whether your stack is completely native AI or it's a hybrid, I think the fundamental question still is, what is the outcome this piece of technology is giving? So like you look at cars, the objective of car is to solve the human need to move from A to B. You can build a great car. I'm not saying there are cars which not able to do that, but like tech stack, if you build a tech stack, AI native, but if there's not a compelling use case or an outcome, then all that fancy toy that you have is not going to, you're not going to be able to monetize it.
But here's a challenge for that, which is, do BYD have more bandwidth, flexibility, time to innovate, to think of the things that we have not yet associated with the value that a car can contribute? That's when you're exclusively focused on innovation and you're not held back, right? You start to unlock value that you and I maybe not have thought about a car, because we've not sat there focusing exclusively enough on it. And do have a view on this. I built an autonomous vehicle engineering and executive recruitment company. We built Samsung's whole autonomous vehicle kind of center in Munich. And I've always said that the future of the office is in the car.
Right.
I see it as humans will work from cars, because, well, if we want that human engagement, there'll be autonomous cars which are kitted out with all the technology integrated into where we are. And actually, so anything that requires a human interaction, I'd be much more productive if I was on the road in a fully integrated technology space. So I guess that's a super futuristic kind of view, but
But it also depends where you are. Like if you're in central London, you probably may not want to be in a car.
Yeah.
Like when I was in US on the West Coast, actually in a way, using my rudimentary, I had a Subaru, and I used to take calls. I mean, everything was hands-free and all, everything was legal.
Yes.
But a lot of times, like if I'm picking my daughter from school and I had a 40-minute journey, I used to productively use that time to do a call where I didn't have to present. So I could be on the listening and then contribute. So for me, yes, I think for
valuable time.
An hour in a day, my car was my office.
Yes.
Yeah.
But does it become more so? And I guess my question actually, coming back to the original point, which is, does BYD, because it doesn't have any of those incumbent legacy issues, its ability to innovate, it starts to unlock value that we haven't yet thought about?
It's a good point. And actually, I didn't think of it. So I think you are now sparking my creativity as well. I think it's true, because you're right that you're used to doing something what you've seen others do. And so unless somebody doesn't show you the art of the possible, like, look, before Instagram, we didn't know that there's Instagram, and now we're all addicted to it, right? And which is right. What technology has done, it has created, it has not just met existing needs, but it's also created new needs. Or maybe there were some needs to, I don't know, like reach out to more people or get the adulation from the social media, which it was tapping into. But I think you're right. If you're not so worried about how you're going to cannibalize your existing revenues, if you're not so worried about how you're going to cannibalize your existing infrastructure, you should, in theory, have more time to think more about how you can better serve humanity.
Yes. What's a possible?
What are the
possibilities?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's this brings me back to that kind of AI native thing, because what I agree with your point, which is that I think that the AI world we're in today is going to have an unbelievable impact on the world, and I think if we look at how it's impacted it in over a very short period of time, and I feel like you've got great visibility of how. If you look at where cloud was at the start to what Amazon's web services now delivers 15 years later, I mean, how they're distinct, they're incomparable, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's still evolving. Now you have companies like CoreWeave.
Yes,
we just went.
That's okay.
Yeah, went public a couple of months ago.
Yeah,
which are defining the new cloud, right? How are you going to see the cloud, which was built for handling web applications, mobile applications, ERP systems. The cloud or what is being built now by companies like CoreWeave is about building cloud that are going to handle these H100, H200, NVIDIA GPUs, which are going to consume 100 times more the power per rack of storage in a data center than what used to be consumed. So it's a different ballgame. Even cloud is evolving. It has to evolve because AI is going to push the boundaries of every element of technology, be it cloud, be it mobile, everything is going to be stress tested because of what AI can do.
I've always said this, and my way of thinking about technology is a pyramid. Okay. And when you have a foundational increase in the height of the pyramid, the amount of change that goes across the breadth just gets bigger.
Yeah.
And so as you go from cloud to AI, and it's a compounding impact. Yeah. Actually, because all that legacy issues, and I just see AI exactly the same way, that AI raises the top of the pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid just got exponentially bigger, and the opportunities, the problems, the things to solve in it become that. It's interesting as to whether that continues to be the case with AI because of the level of autonomy that you're starting to see with agents, and actually does the work across that bottom layer and some of those other layers actually it is greater, but it becomes addressed with in fact some of those layers become obsolete because these agents can jump down through the layers to do different things autonomously, I guess.
I think it could be. So if you look at the example of data centers, like
Yeah.
there's a limit to what you can do to retrofit existing data centers. And you would be better off kind of leaving some of the data centers to do what they do very well. But if you then want to build the next generation of data centers, which are going to train AI models or which are going to sort of allow AI models to run the inferences and produce the compute needed to serve, customers around the country, you're better off just putting them in a new data center. And that's why you're seeing, international and also national investors, pumping in billions of pounds now in building data centers in North Yorkshire or in Hertfordshire or in Wales, etc.
Or the Stargate project.
Or the Stargate project in the US. Because I think to just take an existing data center facility and completely retrofit it, how can you, so when you're used to, simple examples, when you're used to just normal HVAC cooling for a data center, that's not going to run with the amount of processing that will happen with these new GPUs. You got to go for liquid cooling. You just can't drop liquid cooling into an old data center or direct to chip. You can't just do that. Yeah. In fact, there's an article I wrote, I think last week or something, about what are the implications of developing AI as a critical national infrastructure in the UK. Now, I wrote it purely from a UK perspective, but I think it could hold true for any country that wants to develop its AI infrastructure, because I think AI is now as important as water or electricity.
Yes.
It's as important as that. And, any sovereign state would want to make sure that they have, well provisioned and thought about how you're going to provide water, electricity, and AI.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I absolutely believe you're right. That's a really great lens to look at it through. And I totally agree with it. And actually, you made me wonder whether 15 years from now, we'll be driving past derelict, redundant data centers, which are just stacked with old technology that no one's got any interest in. And there are all these new, like Amazon's been firing up these warehouses all over the country. Are these actually just going to be enormous data centers, which are all liquid cooled and stacked with capability? The one thing I do actually think is wrong, though, is I think that this energy crisis they're talking about to drive this, I just think that tech will fix that. I think that doesn't necessarily mean that we won't need more power, but I think that proportionately to the amount of power it takes today to generate a certain outcome, that will massively change where the efficiency of these. It's already happening, isn't it? That people are launching chips and processors which are way more efficient.
Yeah.
Because I think they feel like that is those guys, the manufacturers of those chips and that technology, GPUs, recognize that their ability to deploy it faster. The last thing they want is people having to build nuclear power stations. It's actually a barrier to their success, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think you may be right. And, necessity is the mother of invention. So
yes,
it will probably force some more investment, and hopefully technology will come out which will be able to, but it's still a huge challenge. I mean, I don't know the right answer, but it's a huge challenge because right now, the way the demand for AI is increasing, I don't think from a supply perspective, we are anywhere close to meeting it.
Yeah.
And to some extent, the fulfillment of the demand is going to be held back because of this. Similarly, I'm quite optimistic about the current market because, yes, we have this geopolitical issues and tariffs and all.
Yeah.
But one thing, because I believe that AI is critical national infrastructure, I think, if there's any place that countries will have to invest, it will be in AI. Yeah. So I don't see that reducing. So if I were to take, that's what my article says, that if you're looking to invest somewhere and get, maybe you get hyper returns, but if you want to get decent returns, this is a sure shot.
Yes.
And because of it, there will be certain industries like power companies, like telcos, others who will benefit from it. So you got to focus your investment because I think AI investment now is recession proof. It might delay certain things, but to not do it is not an option because you can't say tomorrow have blackouts in this country because, hey, we're struggling to balance the budget. You will still ensure that the lights are switched on, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what AI is.
Yes. But I love this. What I love and I see all the time
Yeah.
is I kind of always revert to this kind of capitalist driven technology evolution flywheel,
Yeah.
right? Which is that as technology goes through its evolution, it has an automatic, natural evolution flywheel of addressing the barriers to its success. And the way I see that is really fascinating. I see AI in that lens as well, which is that I think that AI is the answer to climate issues for two reasons. One is the obvious, which is that we'll have an abundance of PhD level of intelligence to solve problems.
Yeah.
But two is it's going to increase the demand. And that's where the capitalism comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is that if there's a huge demand for it, it'll attract investment, and investment will drive innovation.
Yeah.
And so it's this wonderful, and it sounds like a real load of like wank word bullshit, when I talk about that. But I really think that technology evolution has this flywheel effect of addressing its challenges, and that in itself. And I just wonder whether, as we go up that pyramid and that flywheel continues to spin, the types of issues that AI fixes in its flywheel are for the first time more profound. They're much broader because of its cloud computing fixed stuff in computing. This fixes things at an intelligence level, doesn't it? Which drives everything. Doesn't it drive the whole flywheel in the future?
It does. But there's one big risk out here that, yes, the investment will go, but the risk here is that everybody is investing in the same thing, but it's just like, different bottles for the same wine. So, which means that some wines are going to be consumed and some wines won't be consumed, which means some people will unfortunately lose money. So I think understanding the unique differentiator that your technology is offering is quite key. But then there's also another risk that you may have something unique today. The barrier for entry has become so low that what is stopping somebody else is sitting in a garage coming up with the same thing.
Yes.
Now, to some extent, like, the rising tide lifts all boats, but there is also a risk that the boats will collide with each other. So not everyone's going to succeed.
Yes. And that's fascinating. It's nice talking to you about this because you've seen that you've had like I said earlier, you've had a front row seat of these different phases of technology, and you'll have experienced the expected outcomes are not always the actual outcomes, are they?
Yeah.
So tell me, before we wrap up here, and thanks for jumping on it. I mean, it's been fascinating. I've loved it.
So it's been just impromptu, right?
I love it. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's so impromptu. I literally said to you, I just come off of a podcast and I said to you, this is what we're doing. You're like, oh. And that's the explorer in you. There you go. That's the adventurous nature. Just like, well, we can do it if you like. I'm like, okay, let's make it happen. Yeah. Great. Nice to meet you.
Same here. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.